I never thought a simple weekend visit to my cousin's house could change my life forever. My name is Ryan, a 22-year-old college student, mostly average in appearance and personality. I had always considered myself practical, cautious, and admittedly, a bit shy. Crossdressing had never been part of my life, not by choice, not by curiosity. I had friends who experimented with it, online personas who explored it passionately, but for me, it had always been a distant, unexplored territory. That Friday afternoon, I packed my bag, intending to spend a few hours at my cousin Lisa's house. Lisa was 2 years older than me, bubbly, confident, and effortlessly stylish. She had this magnetic energy that drew people in, and her creativity was infectious. Her makeup collection alone could rival that of any professional salon, and she never hesitated to use it as her canvas. I admired her, yes, but I also secretly envied the ease with which she presented herself to the world. Bold, expressive, and unapologetically feminine. Lisa greeted me at the door with her usual, dazzling smile. "Ryan, you made it," she exclaimed, giving me a quick, enthusiastic hug. I laughed nervously, feeling slightly out of place in her meticulously curated world. Her house was immaculate, decorated with pastel colors, sparkling accents, and the faint scent of her signature lavender candle. I always felt a little overwhelmed here, like stepping into a universe where everything was brighter, louder, and more alive than my own calm, orderly life. We settled into the living room, chatting about classes, friends, and mutual acquaintances. She seemed in particularly high spirits that day, flitting around with a sense of purpose. Then, with a mischievous glint in her eyes, she turned to me. "Ryan, I have a challenge for you," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "A challenge?" "Yes," she said, clapping her hands together. "It's simple. I'll give you a full makeover, hair, makeup, everything. And if you pull it off, you'll see a version of yourself you've never imagined." I laughed nervously. Lisa, I don't know. That's not really my thing." She tilted her head, a teasing smile spreading across her face. "Exactly. That's why it's perfect. You're so predictable, so practical, it's time to break out of your comfort zone. Besides, it'll be fun." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to decline, to keep the predictable, safe version of myself intact. But another part, a small, hidden part one hadn't acknowledged, felt a spark of curiosity. What would it feel like to explore this side of myself? Could I even imagine becoming someone entirely different, even if only for a few hours? Before I could answer, Lisa had already whisked me into her room, which looked more like a boutique than a bedroom. Rows of makeup products, brushes, palettes, and beauty tools covered every surface. There were wigs of every color and length, shoes lined up along the wall, and dresses hanging neatly on racks. My heart raced as I realized just how serious she was about this challenge. "Okay," she said, clapping her hands. "First, we start with the basics, skin. Then we move to eyes, lips, hair, and finally, the outfit. Trust me, Ryan, by the end of this, you'll look beautiful. Maybe even unforgettable." I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting in a mix of fear and anticipation. She had this way of speaking that made resistance almost impossible. Her confidence was intoxicating, and even as my mind screamed caution, my body felt an inexplicable pull toward the unknown. As she worked, applying foundation, shaping my eyebrows, and gently guiding my face into contours I had never considered, I felt an odd mixture of vulnerability and exhilaration. The soft brushes against my skin, the precise movements, the transformative magic of color, it was mesmerizing. I caught glimpses of myself in the mirror and barely recognized the reflection staring back. My sharp, masculine features softened, my eyes seemed brighter, more expressive, and my lips, well, they looked like something out of a magazine. Lisa clapped her hands, clearly delighted with the progress. "You're doing amazing. Now the hair and the outfit. Are you ready to see the full transformation?" I nodded, though my pulse was racing. The moment of truth approached. She handed me a wig, a cascade of chestnut waves that fell past my shoulders, and helped me into a dress she had carefully selected. It was elegant, modest, yet undeniably flattering, hugging curves I didn't know I had and accentuating the delicate lines she had created with makeup. I turned toward the mirror and my breath caught. For the first time, I didn't just see Ryan, the cautious, reserved cousin who had walked in hours ago. I saw someone entirely new, a version of me that was bold, captivating, and beautiful. The sensation was overwhelming. My heart raced, my cheeks flushed, and a smile threatened to break free. I felt exposed yet powerful, vulnerable yet alive in a way I hadn't experienced before. Lisa stepped back, her eyes shining with pride. "There. You see? This is you, Ryan, but a version you never knew existed. How does it feel?" I looked at her, then back at my reflection. Words failed me. How could I explain the dizzying mixture of emotions swirling inside me? Excitement, fear, curiosity, and an unfamiliar sense of identity all collided. I realized, with a shiver of both dread and delight, that this was more than a simple makeover. It was a doorway, an entrance into a new world, one where I could explore facets of myself I had never dared acknowledge. And as I stood there, caught between the familiar and the unknown, I couldn't shake the thought that this weekend, this challenge, might change me forever. Little did I know, Lisa's challenge was only the beginning. The transformation wasn't just skin deep. It would push my limits, test my courage, and lead me into a world where beauty, desire, and identity intertwined in ways I had never imagined. By the end of this journey, I wouldn't just be a different person for a few hours, I would be beautiful forever. The weekend stretched ahead like a canvas waiting to be painted, and Lisa was determined to fill it with color. After the initial makeover, I found myself both thrilled and terrified. Thrilled because a side of me I had never acknowledged was awakening, and terrified because this awakening felt dangerously permanent. I tried to calm myself, telling my rational mind that it was just a challenge, a playful experiment that would end the moment I left Lisa's house. But deep down, I already sensed that things were changing in ways I couldn't control. Lisa was relentless in her creativity. That evening, she guided me through every detail of maintaining my new persona. She showed me how to walk gracefully in heels, the subtle art of sitting without creasing the dress, and even how to tilt my head to catch the perfect angle in mirrors. Every lesson was accompanied by her amused commentary, teasing me, but also encouraging. "You're a natural," she said at one point, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. Was it praise? Or was it a spark that made this transformation feel too real, too intoxicating? I started noticing the internal conflicts bubbling inside me. At first, I felt embarrassed, completely out of place wearing makeup and a dress in my cousin's room. My hands shook slightly as I brushed on mascara and adjusted the wig, but Lisa's patient encouragement eased the tension. Still, I couldn't ignore the thrill that coiled in my chest. There was something undeniably exciting about presenting myself this way. I wasn't just following a challenge, I was stepping into a new identity, and the secrecy made it feel like a game with high stakes. The next morning, Lisa insisted we practice daytime confidence. She dressed me in a casual outfit that accentuated my curves while still looking like normal clothing to the untrained eye. "You'll need to get used to walking outside like this," she said, holding the door open. "Confidence is everything. If you stumble or look nervous, it all falls apart." We walked to a nearby park, a short stroll from her house. At first, every passerby made my heart race. Did they notice? Could they tell I wasn't fully myself? I felt exposed and strangely vulnerable. Yet with each step, a part of me began to enjoy it. The thrill of being noticed, without revealing the truth, was intoxicating. Lisa's grin grew wider with each passing minute, as if she knew exactly what she was doing to me, breaking down my old boundaries and pushing me into something entirely new. Back at her house, she introduced the next phase, advanced makeup techniques. Contouring, highlighting, lip shaping. Each step made me look more and more like the person in the mirror wasn't the Ryan I had always known. Every layer of makeup, every adjustment, heightened my awareness of the duality within me. I felt a strange kind of liberation, but also a nagging anxiety. Was I changing too much? Would I ever be able to step back into my old self? The first challenge Lisa set up was both thrilling and humiliating. She asked me to answer the door and greet her neighbor, a kindly old woman who often stopped by for tea. My heart raced. Could I maintain a facade? I practiced my voice, softened my tone, adjusted my posture, and when the door opened, I was shocked at how natural it felt to act as this new version of myself. The neighbor complimented my style and asked if I had been taking modeling classes. My stomach fluttered, equal parts pride and fear. Lisa gave me a sly wink from the side, clearly delighted by my reaction. As the hours passed, I found myself navigating increasingly complex scenarios. Lisa created mock social situations, complete with imaginary friends, small talk exercises, and photo challenges. Each task forced me deeper into this persona, making the transformation not just physical, but psychological. I could feel the old Ryan shrinking, replaced by someone more daring, more expressive, more visible. It was exhilarating but also terrifying. By the second day, the stakes increased. Lisa wanted to test my adaptability. She asked me to pose for pictures in her room, simulating a social media shoot. The outfits were increasingly elaborate. Delicate dresses, sparkling accessories, shoes that pinched my feet in ways that somehow made me feel feminine and vulnerable. Standing in front of the camera, adjusting to each pose, I realized that this was no longer just a playful challenge. The thrill of transformation had become addictive. I couldn't stop looking at my reflection, marveling at the changes that felt so foreign yet familiar. Every new layer of clothing, every adjustment to my hair or makeup, brought a rush of emotions. Vulnerability intertwined with empowerment, fear with exhilaration, shame with pride. I felt like I was living two lives at once, the cautious, reserved Ryan I had always been, and this bold, beautiful version that Lisa had unleashed. The mirror became both friend and enemy, reflecting not just the physical changes, but the emotional metamorphosis occurring inside me. But with this newfound confidence came the gnawing fear of discovery. I couldn't let anyone else see me like this. What would my friends think? My parents? The idea of returning to college or walking around my neighborhood in this form was terrifying. Lisa seemed to sense my anxiety and smiled knowingly. "It's part of the fun," she said. "The thrill is in keeping the secret, in navigating this new self without anyone knowing. That's where the real magic happens." That evening, as we reviewed the photos from our sessions, I realized that my emotions were becoming increasingly tangled. Excitement and fear collided, leaving me dizzy and uncertain. Was I enjoying this more than I should? Was this just a temporary experiment? Or had Lisa awakened something permanent inside me? I couldn't answer those questions yet, but one thing was clear. The transformation had gone far beyond appearance. It was changing how I thought, how I moved, how I perceived myself. And as I went to sleep that night, still wearing the light traces of makeup from the day and staring at my reflection in the mirror, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lisa's challenge wasn't just about beauty or fun. It was a gateway to a world where boundaries blurred, identities merged, and the line between reality and fantasy became increasingly thin. I didn't know where it would lead, but I was powerless to resist the pull. The next morning, Lisa introduced a new level of challenge. "Today, we're going to test your poise in public," she announced, her eyes sparkling with mischief. My stomach sank, but a part of me felt an undeniable thrill. The thought of leaving the safety of her home, stepping out in full makeup and feminine attire, made my pulse race. Lisa had chosen a casual dress that hugged my new curves, paired with heels that made every step feel both elegant and precarious. I wobbled slightly as I tried to balance excitement with fear. We started with small errands, a visit to a nearby cafe, and a stroll through the local park. Each step outside heightened my awareness of my dual existence. Passers-by glanced at me, some with curiosity, some with indifference. I had rehearsed my posture, my voice, even my facial expressions, but the real test was maintaining confidence despite the unfamiliar attention. Lisa walked beside me, her presence a constant anchor, offering subtle guidance and encouragement. At the cafe, the barista complimented my style, making my cheeks flush. Every word felt like a double-edged sword. Part of me thrilled at the attention, another part panicked at the exposure. Lisa captured these moments with her camera, documenting every smile, every pose. By the time we returned to her house, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. I was learning to inhabit this persona fully, but the constant awareness of how others perceived me left me drained. Back at home, Lisa intensified the makeup lessons. She introduced me to techniques that transformed my face entirely, contouring it into softer, more feminine lines. Applying lipstick, eyeliner, and blush became both a ritual and a form of self-discovery. I noticed subtle changes in my demeanor, the way I held my head, the tilt of my shoulders, the careful placement of my hands. The mirror no longer reflected just Ryan. It reflected a dual identity, one that was emerging more vividly with each passing day. Lisa's challenges didn't stop there. She created scenarios that mimicked social interactions, asking me to respond as this new persona would. Imagine you're at a party, someone flirts with you, and you have to respond with charm, she instructed. At first, I stumbled over words, unsure how to act convincingly. But as the hours passed, I began to relax into the role. My voice softened, my gestures became more fluid, and a strange sense of empowerment emerged. I realized that this was more than just a physical transformation. It was a psychological one. The suspense of being caught lingered constantly in my mind. I thought about my friends, my parents, and the possibility of encountering someone who might recognize me. Each new skill Lisa taught, how to walk gracefully, how to converse with poise, how to apply makeup flawlessly, was a double-edged sword. They enhanced my feminine persona, but also deepened my fear of exposure. Every doorbell, every knock at the window, sent a jolt of panic through me. Lisa's final challenge of the day was the most intense. She asked me to participate in a mock photo shoot that simulated a real social media post. The outfit was elaborate, a flowing dress with delicate lace, heels that pinched my feet just enough to make walking feel purposeful, and accessories that accentuated my transformation. As I posed in front of the camera, adjusting my hair and expression with careful precision, I felt the thrill of duality more acutely than ever. This was not just play. It was a test of identity, confidence, and control. As the day drew to a close, I stood in front of the mirror, exhausted but exhilarated. The reflection staring back at me was unrecognizable and yet strangely familiar. The duality within me was no longer a secret. I had fully stepped into this new persona, and the thrill of it was addictive. Lisa's challenge had pushed me past fear into a realm where vulnerability, excitement, and self-discovery intertwined. But beneath the exhilaration, a gnawing fear persisted. How long could I maintain this dual life without someone discovering the truth? The more I embraced this new identity, the harder it became to separate it from my old self. Every glance in the mirror, every adjustment of makeup, every step in heels reminded me that I was walking a fine line between revelation and concealment. As I prepared for bed, I noticed the subtle changes in my posture and demeanor. Even without the makeup and dress, I could feel the lingering impact of Lisa's lessons. My mind was racing with possibilities. What if this was permanent? What if I couldn't return to the life I had before? The uncertainty was thrilling, terrifying, and utterly consuming. That night, I fell asleep staring at the ceiling, thoughts swirling about the challenges ahead. Lisa's influence had opened a door I couldn't close, and the suspense of what was to come kept my heart pounding. I was no longer just Ryan. I was something more, something fragile, powerful, and undeniably transformed. When I looked in the mirror, the person staring back at me wasn't Ryan anymore. The reflection belonged to Riley, a beautiful, confident girl with glossy lips, long lashes, and a gentle sparkle in her eyes. My breath caught. Lisa stood behind me, her hands resting on my shoulders. "You see it now, don't you?" she whispered. "You're not pretending anymore. You're living it." My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. I nodded faintly. I look like her. Not just look, Lisa corrected, smiling softly. You are her tonight. The drive to her friend's house was silent except for the hum of the engine and the sound of my nervous breathing. My hands trembled in my lap, the skirt brushing lightly against my knees. The closer we got, the heavier my chest felt. At the party, laughter filled the air. The moment I stepped inside, all eyes turned toward me. My pulse spiked. Was it fear or excitement? I couldn't tell. But then someone said, "Lisa, your cousin's adorable," and the tension began to melt. They accepted me, her, instantly. I smiled, laughed, and even joined in conversations. Every time I adjusted my hair or crossed my legs delicately, I felt more at ease. The fear faded, replaced by something powerful, freedom. But then came the twist. Midway through the night, one of the guests, a girl named Jenna, tilted her head and said, "Wait, you look really familiar. Do you go to Lincoln High?" My heart nearly stopped. That was my school. Lisa jumped in instantly, laughing it off. She gets that a lot. Riley's always being mistaken for someone else. Jenna laughed and let it go, but my nerves were shattered. When we got home, I collapsed onto my bed, still shaking. Lisa closed the door behind her. "You handled that perfectly," she said. "You didn't break. You were her the entire time." I stared at my reflection again. The makeup slightly smudged, the curls still soft around my face. "Lisa," I said quietly, "I don't know who I am anymore." She smiled, walking over to gently lift my chin. "Maybe you're both, Ryan and Riley. And maybe that's okay." But as I met her eyes, a new fear crept in. What if I couldn't go back? What if Riley wasn't just a disguise anymore, but who I was becoming? And then Lisa said something that froze me completely. "Tomorrow, Mom wants to meet Riley." I might have told her everything. The room went silent. My heart dropped. "You what?" Lisa's calm expression didn't waver. "She's curious. And honestly, I think she'll love you." My hands began to tremble again. But this time, it wasn't just fear. It was the realization that my secret, once contained within a single challenge, was now spiraling beyond my control. Everything had changed, and there was no turning back. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through the curtains and panic. My phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. "Mom's home. Get ready, Riley. She's excited to meet you." My heart nearly stopped. I sat up, the wig slightly askew from sleep, mascara faintly smeared under my eyes. Last night had felt like a dream. But this was too real. I wanted to text her back, to say no, to tell her this had gone too far. But my fingers hesitated over the keyboard. A strange part of me didn't want to stop it. 15 minutes later, Lisa came in holding a light pink dress. "Here," she said, laying it on my bed. "Mom's making pancakes. You have 10 minutes. I stared at the dress, soft, elegant, almost innocent. "Lisa, this isn't funny anymore," I muttered, but my voice trembled. She knelt in front of me, taking my hands. "You handled last night beautifully. You became Riley. You can do this one more time." Something in her voice was both comforting and persuasive. Against all logic, I nodded. When I walked into the kitchen, her mom turned, her face lighting up. "Oh, you must be Riley. Lisa told me so much about you." Her warmth disarmed me instantly. I forced a smile, murmuring, "Hi, Mrs. Bennett." "Please," she laughed, "call me Clara." As I sat at the table, every second felt surreal. The way she poured syrup on my plate, asked me questions about school, even complimented my hair. My nerves screamed for escape, but my body stayed still, playing the part. After breakfast, Clara leaned back and smiled knowingly. "You know, Lisa didn't tell me everything," she said softly. "But I can tell. There's something special about you, Riley." My throat tightened. She knew. Somehow, she knew. Then came the words that sent chills through me. "I think you're exactly who Lisa needed in her life. Don't lose her or yourself." Her eyes locked on mine. Understanding, gentle, and far too aware. When she left the room, Lisa grinned. Told you she'd love you. I turned to her, voice cracking. Lisa, what happens now? She stepped closer, her hand brushing mine. That's up to you. You can take the wig off, wash away the makeup, go back to being Ryan. Or, her gaze softened. You can stop pretending. I froze. Somewhere deep inside, I knew she was right. Riley wasn't just a disguise anymore. She was a truth I hadn't been brave enough to face. I looked in the mirror again, at the girl who had once been a punishment, a debt, a lie. But now she looked real. And for the first time, I whispered to my reflection, maybe I'm not pretending anymore. Lisa smiled from behind me. Welcome home, Riley. The words lingered in the air, soft, final, and terrifyingly real. Because deep down, I knew she was right. Ryan was gone. And Riley, she was here to stay.